Almost everything you've been told about managing stress deals with the symptoms, never the source. Take a deep breath, have a bath, try to relax, do some yoga. All of it useful and all of it aimed at the feeling of stress after it's already arrived, treating the smoke while the fire keeps burning. You calm yourself down, and then life stresses you out again, and you calm yourself down again forever, because you never touched the thing actually generating the stress in the first place. The Japanese approach is different and quietly radical. Instead of managing the feeling of stress, it addresses the causes, the underlying ways of thinking and living that generate stress to begin with. It doesn't teach you to cope better with a stressful life. It quietly removes the sources of the stress, so there's less of it to cope with at all. And the result isn't a person who's good at calming down. It's a person who simply doesn't generate that much stress in the first place. Today, I want to share 5 Japanese habits, really 5 shifts in how you think and live, that work at the source rather than the symptom. None of them are breathing exercises or quick fixes. Each one reaches into a genuine cause of modern stress and quietly dissolves it. And I promise you, by the end, you'll see your own stress differently. Not as something you have to keep managing, but as something that has sources you can actually remove. Let me say one thing, and then I won't bring it up again. I put the heart of everything on this channel into a small book, Wabi Sabi, Finding Peace in an Imperfect Life. It's linked below, if it speaks to you. Now let's continue. Stay with me until the 5th one, because it's the deepest. It addresses the single largest source of modern stress, the one underneath almost all the others. Let's begin. The first source of stress the Japanese quietly remove is one most people never even recognize as a choice: the exhausting pursuit of perfection. So much modern stress comes from an impossible standard: the need to be perfect, to do everything flawlessly, to have the perfect home, the perfect work, the perfect life, and the relentless self-criticism when we inevitably fall short. It's a source of constant grinding pressure, and most people never question it. They just assume that's how life feels. Japanese culture offers a genuine alternative in the concept of wabi-sabi, the aesthetic and philosophy that finds beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. The cracked bowl, the weathered wood, the asymmetrical and the aged. Wabi-sabi sees these not as flaws but as beautiful, as more real and more precious because of their imperfection, not despite it. And applied to life, this quietly dissolves an enormous source of stress. When you genuinely accept that imperfection is not failure, that it's natural, beautiful, even valuable, the crushing pressure to be perfect simply loosens its grip. You stop demanding flawlessness of yourself and your life, and in doing so, you remove one of the largest sources of chronic self-inflicted stress there is. This isn't lowering your standards. It's releasing an impossible one that was only ever hurting you. The habit is to look at your imperfect work, your imperfect home, your imperfect self, and to see, genuinely, that it's enough, that the imperfection is part of what makes it real. That single shift removes a stress most people carry their entire lives without ever realizing they had a choice. And notice how much of modern life quietly amplifies this particular stress. We're surrounded, more than any generation before us, by images of apparent perfection: the flawless homes, the perfect bodies, the seemingly effortless lives scrolling past us endlessly, and we measure our own real, messy, imperfect lives against these polished illusions and feel that we're falling short. It's a comparison that can't be won, because we're comparing our unedited reality to everyone else's carefully curated highlights. Wabi-sabi is a quiet rebellion against all of it. It says the crack, the flaw, the imperfection isn't something to hide or fix or feel ashamed of. It's where the beauty and the realness actually live. A perfectly polished thing is a little lifeless. It's the imperfections that make something authentic, human, and precious. Carry that into how you see your own life, and an entire dimension of manufactured inadequacy simply falls away. The second source of stress the Japanese remove is one the modern world creates relentlessly: the stress of too much, of no room to breathe. Modern life is crammed homes, crammed schedules, crammed minds. Every surface covered, every hour booked, every moment filled with input and activity and noise. And this fullness is itself a source of stress. A cluttered space agitates the mind. A packed schedule with no space leaves you perpetually rushed and overwhelmed. A life with no emptiness in it never gets to rest. The Japanese concept of ma, the appreciation of empty space as something valuable, not wasted, is the antidote, and it applies to far more than rooms. Ma is the idea that the empty space, the pause, the gap, is not a lack but a presence, the thing that lets everything else breathe. In a room, it's the clear surface and open space that make the space feel calm. In a life, it's the unscheduled time, the pause between activities, the deliberate emptiness that lets you actually rest. And protecting this empty space removes stress at its source, because so much stress is simply the result of too much with no room to recover. When you keep some space clear, in your home, and just as importantly in your schedule, you give your mind somewhere to rest, and you stop generating the overwhelm that comes from a life packed wall to wall. The habit is to resist the urge to fill every space and every hour, and to protect some emptiness deliberately. A clear surface, an unscheduled evening, a pause between things. That protected emptiness isn't wasted. It's where your stress goes to dissolve. The third source of stress the Japanese quietly remove is one of the most powerful, and one of the hardest for the modern Western mind: the exhausting struggle against things we cannot control. An enormous amount of stress comes from resisting reality, from fighting, worrying about, and railing against things that are simply beyond our control. The outcome we can't determine, the circumstance we can't change, the way things are rather than the way we wish they were. We exhaust ourselves in a struggle we can never win, generating constant stress by refusing to accept what cannot be changed. Japanese culture, shaped by Buddhist and Zen influences and by concepts like shikaraganai, roughly, it cannot be helped, carries a deeper capacity for acceptance. Not passive resignation, and not giving up on what you can change, but a genuine acceptance of what is truly beyond your control, and a release of the struggle against it. There's also mono no aware, a gentle acceptance of the impermanence and transience of things, a making peace with the fact that everything passes. And this acceptance removes stress at its very root, because so much of our suffering isn't caused by our circumstances themselves, but by our resistance to them. When you learn to accept what you genuinely cannot control, to release the exhausting fight against reality and put your energy only into what you can actually change, an enormous source of chronic stress simply dissolves. The habit is to ask, of whatever is stressing you, is this within my control? If it is, act on it. And if it truly isn't, practice releasing it, accepting with as much grace as you can that it cannot be helped, and letting the struggle go. That release is one of the most powerful stress removers there is. It's worth being clear about what this is and isn't, because Westerners often hear acceptance and flinch, imagining passivity or defeat. It's neither. Shikata-ga-nai isn't about giving up on things you can change, or meekly accepting injustice. It's about a clear-eyed sorting of your energy. So much of our stress comes from pouring emotional effort into things that effort cannot touch. The weather on an important day, the traffic, another person's opinion, an outcome already decided, the past that can't be undone. We worry at these things endlessly, as though worrying might change them, and it never does. It only exhausts us. Acceptance simply stops the waste. It says, put your energy where it can actually make a difference, and stop bleeding it into what it can't. Far from passive, this is one of the most practical and freeing mental habits a person can build, and it removes a staggering amount of stress that was never accomplishing anything in the first place. The fourth habit addresses a subtler but deep source of stress, the low background stress of a life that feels scattered, directionless, or without meaning. A surprising amount of modern stress comes not from having too much to do, but from a lack of clear purpose, a sense of being pulled in every direction, chasing goals that aren't really yours, busy without meaning, uncertain what any of it is even for. This directionless quality generates its own quiet, persistent stress, the unease of a life without a center. The Japanese concept of ikigai, your reason for being, the thing that gives your life meaning and gets you up in the morning, addresses this directly. Ikigai is the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, and what gives your days purpose. It's the sense that your life has a direction and a meaning, a reason behind the daily effort. And having this quietly removes a source of stress most people don't even recognize, because a life with clear purpose is a life with a center, something that organizes your energy, that tells you what matters and what doesn't, that gives your effort a point. When you know your ikigai, you're no longer scattered and directionless. You can focus on what genuinely matters to you and let go of the rest, which itself removes an enormous amount of the stress of trying to do everything and please everyone. The habit is to find and stay connected to your own reason for being, the purpose that gives your life direction, and to let it guide where you spend your energy. A life with a clear center is far less stressful than a life without. 1. Because it's no longer being pulled apart in every direction at once. Here it is, the fifth and deepest habit, the one that addresses the single largest source of modern stress, the one underneath almost all the others, the endless, exhausting pursuit of more. Think about how much of your stress traces back to this: the pressure to earn more, achieve more, acquire more, be more, the constant striving toward a future point where things will finally be enough, a point that never arrives, because the moment you reach one goal, the wanting simply moves to the next. This endless reaching is perhaps the single greatest source of chronic stress in modern life, the grinding, permanent sense that you are not yet where you need to be, that you don't yet have enough, that you must keep pushing forever. Japanese culture, shaped by that instinct against excess, by Matanai, by Buddhist teachings on the suffering that craving causes, offers the deepest possible answer, the practice of wanting less, and of genuinely accepting that what you have is enough. Not the endless chase for more, but contentment with sufficiency, a life oriented around enough rather than more. And this removes stress at the deepest possible source, because the pursuit of more is the engine underneath so much of our striving, our overwork, our anxiety, our discontent. When you step off that treadmill, when you genuinely accept that your life right now is closer to enough than you've been letting yourself believe, the enormous constant stress of endless reaching simply stops. You're no longer straining toward a future sufficiency that never comes. You're resting in a present one that's already here. The habit is to ask, of your own endless wanting, isn't this already enough? And to let the honest answer, which is so often yes, quiet the reaching. This is the deepest stress removal of all, because it dissolves the very engine that generates so much of the rest. So let's gather the 5. Make peace with imperfection. Protect empty space in your home and your schedule. Accept what you cannot control. Find your reason to get up in the morning. And want less, let enough be enough. Notice what makes every one of these different from ordinary stress advice. Not a single one is about coping with stress after it arrives. Every one reaches into a genuine source. The pursuit of perfection, the stress of too much, the struggle against the uncontrollable, the ache of a directionless life, the endless chase for more, and quietly removes it. That's the real Japanese secret. You don't have to get better and better at managing an endlessly stressful life. You can remove the things that were generating the stress in the first place and simply have less of it to manage. And here's what to take from all of it. You don't have to adopt all 5 at once. Pick the one that struck you most, the one that named a source of stress you recognized in your own life. Maybe it's releasing the pursuit of perfection. Maybe it's protecting a little empty space, or accepting something you've been fighting that you cannot change, or finally asking whether what you have is already enough. Start there. Work at the source, not the symptom. And slowly, as these shifts take root, you may find that you're not just better at calming down, you're generating far less to calm down from in the first place. Because the deepest peace was never about managing your stress better. It was about quietly removing the things that were causing it all along. Now, I'd genuinely like to hear from you. Of these 5 sources of stress, perfectionism, too much, the struggle against the uncontrollable, directionlessness, and the chase for more, which one is the biggest in your life right now? Be honest with yourself and tell me in the comments. And if this gave you a deeper, more hopeful way to think about your own stress, share it with one person who you know is carrying too much and could use a little more peace. I'll see you in the next one.